This is going to be the rear sight removal and installation for the M1 Carbine. Some of the tools that I'm going to use are the cleaning brush, some angled files, a spacer, rear sight removal tool, and some oil. Alright, the first thing I do is I go around and I make sure that I clean in this area here, on the insides over here, and on the opposite side over here. Clean it out with something sharp without damaging the finish. Oil it overnight and then come back to it. Alright, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the rear sight removal tool on the receiver. Okay, this is how this works. And what we're going to end up doing is taking off this rear sight and installing a USGI flip sight. And what I'm doing is I'm lining up where this is going to push it from left to right, always left to right for the removal and right to left for the install. Okay, so this piece of brass is going to go through the dovetail area, or close to the dovetail area. So I'm just lining it up, tightening it up. And I use a little painter's tape. I just happen to have a few pieces already cut. I put it in between the brass and the rear sight. And I get it just to where it's just snug. Now, it's really important for this next step. I happen to have a spacer. Okay, and what it's going to do, it's going to go in here, and you don't want to bend this wing inward or outward, no matter what you're doing, either installing or removing. If you don't have this wing, at a minimum, what you need to do is bring it all the way down to the left, so that the ramp is pushing up against that wing, so you don't screw up the threads or the ramp at all. It'll help it out a lot better. Okay, I'll do it without the spacer just to show how it works. Okay, now that I have everything lined up, everything's clean, it's snug on there, and I'm going to put some torque on it to remove it. Let's do it this way. Now you can start seeing how this ramp here is moving to the right, this ramp is moving to the right. So we know we have good positive pressure going against it. You can see it coming out. The stake marks that held it into place have given way under the pressure. Now, if you look carefully, it's actually loose enough where I can remove it. It almost hits this corner over here. Just be careful of that. You might have to slide the unit higher or lower just to make sure to see if it clears. Okay, now that it's out, remove the rear sight tool. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean the threads really well. Excuse me, the grooves in the dovetail really well as the grooves that are in the rear sight. Okay, so you can see that it's clean. These are the stake marks. What you're going to have to do is, first thing I would do is clean the tops and clean inside the dovetails with something sharp or WD-40, and you're going to scratch. You're going to look for these stake marks, and you might have to take the angled file and just take them down a bit on each side. Just feel with your fingers, and then take your sight. Now this happens to be a quality hardware receiver, so I have a quality hardware flip sight. The S is going to face to the left. It's actually you know, maybe 1/1000th shorter on this side. That's what the S is for. So I'm just going to dry fit it. So it actually went in pretty decent, which is actually, that's a lot, so that's pretty good. I want to make sure that my dovetails here are nice and clean before I do this. Again, and then I wipe them out. See how the paper caught up on that? I wipe each piece. Okay. And now I'm going to oil it. The receiver and the rear sight. Alright, it's in loose. What I need to do is I need to remove my bolt out of the rear sight tool, and I'm going to move it to the opposite side because we're pushing from the right side now to the left side. When you're doing this, make sure that you have a really good padding in between the brass end of the tool and the rear sight. Now, these rear sights go for about $150, $175. You know, you want to secure your investment there. Putting the tape in there, I do about 3 layers. I find that if you do any more than that, it just gets like really sloppy. Even 2 will do sometimes. Okay, I got it set up. Okay, I lined everything up again. Tightening down. If anybody has questions during the video, you can always email me. I'm on the forum, and my email address isn't that, I don't do any secret squirrel stuff. It's norwich93@netzero.net. I don't hide behind a username or anything like that. Okay, now we're getting ready for the install. You can see how it's lined up nice. I get my padding, I put my padding on. Okay, actually, I'm going to do this by hand as much as possible, and we'll see what happens. Actually, she's going in really good. I'm surprised. Alright, now she's getting tight. And I'm just going to push it right to the middle. Getting extremely tight now. Just checking the dovetail. Well, it should be good, should be clear. And that's about midpoint. Okay. Back it off. Remove my tool. And I should have a working legit rear sight, flip sight, after I wipe it down. Nicely spaced. That's how you remove a rear sight and install a rear sight in the M1 Carbine.